We homeschool to the rhythm of the seasons, so here's a recap and review of spring schooling. We finished the winter season with a winter woodlands theme, specifically a mini study on owls. So we picked right back up on a study on North American birds. And I always display our unit study materials and projects on a shelf like so to encourage independent exploration in the schoolroom. These eggs were one of our first handicraft projects, and they are wet felted hollow eggs. The supplies used for this project were wool roving, and we ended up only using the off-white roving, cotton embroidery thread, and wooden eggs. All of our supplies are always from achildsdream.com. So we started off with gently tugging and shredding the wool roving for thinner pieces and gently wrapping a good amount of it around the egg. And then, as with all wet felting projects, we used warm soapy water and a little bit hotter than warm if your child can tolerate it, and occasionally also bathing it in cold water and alternating. This craft takes a lot of handwork, so massaging and pressing the wet felt, but wet felting is a fun sensorial experience for all ages. We let dry for about 3 days, and then we made a slit cut across the middle to remove the wooden egg, and we did choose to stitch the edge of the openings. They were made by little hands, so they're perfectly imperfect, and I love how they turned out. The littles love putting little playthings and peg dolls inside. Also displayed on the shelf are these 3-part cards. I just chose not to cut them into 3 parts rather than just 2, where we can match the facts to the bird. And these are created by Chicky and Rue. They are included in the Firefly Nature School Aviary bundle. And in this canvas bag, there are more 3-part cards, but also puzzle pieces to go along with a bird anatomy puzzle. And I have shared about these Montessori inspired anatomy of puzzles, a hands on and living approach to learning the anatomy of, in this study, specifically a bird. In this binder is the bundle I purchased from Firefly Nature School, and this is one resource we used as the spine. Included in this bundle is Avian Anatomy, Fabulous Feathers, Winter Birds, and Fly Away. So we only worked through avian anatomy and feathers, but we will make our way back to the later 2 during the fall and winter seasons. In the anatomy study, the parent is provided with informational text to read to the student as an opening or introduction to the unit. There is a study on the outside anatomy of a bird and the inside anatomy. And every one of these sections or studies will include a worksheet or 2. There are prompts for writing, which we led more for discussion. And then there are extensions to these lessons, like dissecting gizzards, which we didn't get to, but I'd love to come back to at a later time. In Fabulous Feathers, we're encouraged to observe feathers, which we did. There's study by using a diagram provided, and again, a worksheet, and also journaling in this section. The bottom part is called a quill. Can you show me the quill on your feather? Yep. And can you show me the barb? I do feel as if we didn't utilize this resource to its full offerings. Given the world current events around us, we weren't heavy on the bookwork, more on, it's ironic, but being outdoors and gardening and exploring safely. So I'm okay with that. It did serve us as it needed, and that sits well with me. We'll be sure to get back to it another time. Moving on to more of the resources that we enjoyed and maybe some which we didn't. And I'll try to move through these quickly as I have shared most of them in more detail in a previous spring haul video, and I'll link that down below. Fandex Family Field Guides. So these are fun and valuable in taking with you outdoors for bird watching. Although the size is on the bigger size to actually travel with or put in an outdoor bag for my personal preference. But my favorite thing about this are the actual cutouts of the birds. It makes it easy to identify and good for detail when journaling as well. My trusty handy Nature Anatomy. There is an entire chapter dedicated to birds in Nature Anatomy. So this book served as the second spine for our unit. Anatomy of a bird, several spreads on birds, which my daughter took inspiration from for a journal entry. And if you're curious, she used oil pastels as the art medium, and she does still need to go back and finish the annotations. 2 pages on feathers that we referenced to during our feather observations. Bird calls. If you guys have watched my spring related videos, you've seen us get several use of our bird call. Everyone in our family enjoyed using it. This is just an extra powder. The actual bird call is in our backpack for taking outdoors with us. Several beautiful pages on nests, and we used this spread also as inspiration for creating a nest invitation where I laid out a tray of materials like pipe cleaners, burlap, ribbon, twine, newspaper, grass, and I invited the littles to weave a nest. They flew with this activity, no pun intended. Just look at this beautiful nest. This one is created by my Luna, age 3. She made it extra comfy, she says. Noah's is a lot more colorful, and he insisted on adding a seashell. I think that this page on extraordinary eggs is my favorite, and it inspired us to make replicas out of air dry clay, and the littles absolutely love working with clay, and they did so well at forming the eggs using those little finger muscles, fine motor skills, and dexterity to form them. We made replicas of finch eggs, robin eggs, and house sparrows, down to the actual size of the eggs and color. And once the littles formed the eggs, my teenage daughter did take over the painting part of this project. And again, let's admire these beautiful nests. These were made by Bella, and she did such a wonderful job. I also want to point out that the illustrations of the eggs here on the page are actual sizes of the eggs as well. Reading about bird behaviors was interesting, and I learned something new. And also in this chapter are birds of prey, big birds, different beaks, which was really interesting as well, and water birds. Another guide we got a lot of use of is Take Along Guides, Birds, Nests, and Eggs. So there are 2 suggested activities in this book with a section for scrapbooking in the back, blank pages. But the rest of the book is the field guide of 15 different birds. First, can we take a moment for the illustrations? Just beautiful. And so with each type of bird, there will be the same layout or spread. So there's informational text on the bird, the nest, the eggs, and an interesting fact. DK Ultimate Sticker Book was a flop for us for 2 reasons. The price, this was about $7 to $8, and the contents are mostly stickers. Maybe we can blame my disappointment on that my expectations were that this would be something similar to the Nat Geo sticker activity books, which are on our top 5 favorite resources list. Overall, not worth the price, and we did not end up using this resource. A resource we do enjoy are the field guide posters from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Forest Service. I don't know if these are still available for purchase, but I will link their website down below. I paid, I think, $6.99 for 12 field guide posters, printed and shipped. We enjoy these for our nature journals and displaying on our shelves. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, we spent the biggest portion of our spring season outside, especially in the garden. So much that I made an entire video about our garden schooling. I share our garden themed resources, activities, and garden projects. It's a good video in my opinion, so go watch it if you haven't. I will link it in the description box below. You may know this already, but I organize our seasonal resources from HearthMagic into a binder for each season. And as I've shared my winter binder, here is what we did for spring. I put her coloring pages in here, which my kids love. Wren, the King of Birds, an Irish folk tale. I also keep spring-related prayers and poems, which we read during tea time, handwriting sheets, and the Christ-centered Easter Guide. Our main read aloud for the season was The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Bennett. This is a Classics Harbor print edition. And to accompany it, The Secret Garden Family Literature Guide from HearthMagic. So we did not make it to the end of this read, as you can see here. It's a fun story, and Bella was engaged for small spurts at a time, but as you see, there are 27 chapters, and the chapters are long. Towards the last 2 weeks, Bella just wasn't as captivated anymore, not even for 5 minutes of reading time. And so rather than forcing it, which she would not have retained as much, we put it down to come back to it in a few months. But even with that, we did get so much use out of the family literature guide. And so beginning with chapter 1, where it kicks off with journaling. So we were prompted to draw or journal our imagination of Mary's home in India. Meanwhile, my teenagers drew a map of India. One put down annotations, and the other didn't want to ruin her artwork. But they did create trivia questions inspired by the Professor Noggin's trivia card games and Pepper and Pine's recreation of them as well. In this chapter, we also did some studying of historical events or dates on the British colonialism in India. And there's also plenty of copy work in this guide, which Bella does enjoy, alternating this approach with her handwriting curriculum. In chapter 2, the focus was on more character journals and copy work. In chapter 3, we did skip the copy work and we couldn't visit a train station, but we did look up some educational videos on the moors. Chapter 4's activities on the Yorkshire accents went a bit above all of our heads, honestly, so we skipped over it along with the sewing project. However, chapter 5 was a big hit for us. We enjoyed making birdseed cakes. And an art block led by my husband on painting the robin from the garden. The kids did such a fine job at following along, and this is Bella's piece right here with a side by side of my husband's. Art is really her heart's calling. I think she did a wonderful job. And this is my Noah's, also so beautiful and unique, just as he is. In chapter 6, we modified slightly this strange sounds activity, but we did have a listening and meditation moment. And then we did model an elephant. So we pulled out modeling clay, and only my youngest two daughters stuck around for this activity. And although we're just beginners, my girls did so wonderfully at following along again. And so we had a great time with this activity, and it actually inspired us to pull out our modeling clay some more. In my opinion, our elephants turned out adorably, and my girls have attempted to play with them, as you can tell here by some of the nail indents and fingerprints. For chapter 7, regrettably, I couldn't find an antique key since we were limiting our store outings. I still do want to hide one in our garden for the littles to find, so I'll have to go thrifting soon. But my teenage daughter was assigned this project of hand sewing a journal cover with fabric we had on hand. It's a canvas like material, and I do like the contrasting purple thread she used. The cover was for a spiral journal, so it already has a binding and hardback covers, so we just did modify the pattern a bit. The same situation with a jump rope activity. I could not find a cotton rope, not even on Amazon, but again, I'm adding it to our summer bucket list. And the last week we made it through the guide for was week 9 or chapter 9, a botany study. So we went very hands on in this chapter. Bella journaled the drawing of the hibiscus and she labeled the parts. Then she also dissected a hibiscus bud from our garden down to the pollen tube. She put it under a microscope, and we referenced through our books for more study on pollination. So once we're done with a unit study block, I organize our materials that are specific to that topic in a cubby on our science shelf. This way the kids can come back to further explore the materials at any time. And if I do observe that the cubby has gone untouched for a significant amount of time, then I will store it away in our seasonal totes. Friends, the spring season was an unusual time for most of us. I know that it was for my family, but together we still found beauty in it. We can always find beauty in the little things around us. And so, with that, I hope that you're ready and encouraged to find it within the new season. Thanks for watching.